Afwan. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, before he created human beings, he knew who are going to believe and who are not going to believe. It is from the knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So the example in the daughter is saying, now Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala knew that there is a particular person that if Allah were to put him into existence, he will not believe in Allah. And he will not make the choice to believe. Allah knew. And he wills that to happen. When the time comes he created disbelief in that person. So this particular action of this particular person, this faith of this person, he is the one who chose not to believe in Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And Allah knew before Allah brought him into existence, and Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala created any disbelief in him, but he is accountable for his choices. So we say this happens by the knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and it happens by the will of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that Allah has willed it. So everything that is willed by Allah will happen. But it does not mean that human beings are forced by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala knew the choices that we will make before he brought us into existence, and everything happens by the knowledge of Allah, meaning there can be no contradiction between something that happens and the knowledge of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and everything happens by the will of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Naam. Then he said, it is impossible for Allah to be puzzled. Puzzlement is when something is forgotten after being known. This is impossible for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. It is also impossible for Allah to be heedless when he brings things into existence. Heedlessness means being completely unaware of something. This is impossible. Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, he knew everything. It is impossible to believe that Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala forgot about something, or Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala does not know about a particular thing. This is impossible for Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Now, that is to say, it is impossible for Allah to bring anything of this world into existence out of puzzlement or heedlessness. Now, I think this is clear, inshallah. If you have any questions, inshallah, later, as what we mentioned in our classes, that we will take in any questions, and inshallah. Now, when we go on to the next page, 125. And the author already mentioned, it is impossible for Allah the Exalted. It is impossible for Allah the Exalted to bring anything of the world into existence through causation. Last week, I spoke a bit about the meaning of causation. In Arabic, we call it illah or ta'lil. And it is a philosophy that is abided by so many of the Greek philosophers, mainly, in which we find Imam Razali speaks about this in his book Tahafutul Falasifa extensively. In that his divine entity is a cause for the existence of the creation without will and omnipotence. Taib. Now we want to understand. Now we want to understand what is the meaning of al-illah and ta'lil. So this philosophy believes that when they say that God exists, and the existence of God is pre-eternal. The existence of God and the existence of universe, it comes together. This is the belief of al-illah or the belief of ta'lil. So when they say that the universe comes into existence with the existence of the Creator, the existence of God, they say that this kind of existence is devoid of godly intervention. It is the existence of the universe is not due to the power of God or the will of God. Meaning this existence comes together with the existence of God. in a sense that it is not any by the power any of God, and it is not any by the will of God. So they claim that this happens against the will any of God, and not any by the power any of God. This is basically the philosophy of causation, as what is meant any by our ulama, when they speak about al-illa wa ta'lil. And here the author will give an example. So inshallah, we just read first, and then we will go back inshallah. So he said, those who hold this belief are the people of cause. People who believes in illah. As what Imam Ahmad Aghdiri mentioned, وَمَنْ يَقُلْ بِالْعِلَّةِ وَالطَّبْعِ فَذَاكَ بِالطَّبْعِ وَالْعِلَّةِ أو العلة فذاك كفر عند أهل الملة. So these are the people of illah. They believe in causation, and when we translate it to this English, those who hold this belief are the people of cause among the philosophers. According to them, the reality of cause is that it is from an action that springs as opposed to living off an action without any prerequisite condition or removal of impediments. This is the definition of al-illah. So we go one by one inshallah. They believe that according to them, and now author is saying, according to them, the reality of cause, al-illah, is that from which an action springs. How can this particular action come about? It come about by the existence of another thing. So there is talazum. There must be something that is absolute. That when this particular thing comes into existence, the next thing comes together with it. So there is any talazum, and in Arabic we call it talazum, between this existence and this existence, without the first existence giving any effect to the second existence. As one I mentioned earlier, that the philosophers they believe that the existence of the universe comes together with the existence of God. So they believe in the existence of God as pre-eternal. At the same time also, when they explain about the universe, they are saying that the universe is not created by God. But how come the universe comes into existence? It comes into existence by illah, by causation. By the existence of God, it springs into existence. It springs into existence with the existence of God, without the will of God, and without the power of God that cause any effect to the existence of the universe. So a Muslim who believes in this automatically goes in the state of kufr to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what is mentioned by Aqeedah Bahiyya. وَمَنْ يَقُلْ بِالطَّبْعِ أَوِ الْعِلَّةِ فَذَاكَ كُفْرٌ عِنْدَ أَهْلِ الْمِلَّةِ. Those who believe in illah or taba' coming inshallah after this. This is kufrun. Why kufrun? Because a person who believes in illah, he believes that the creation is not created by God, but it exists with the existence of God, without God intervene or having independent efficacy towards the creation, or having the will to bring it into existence. So that is why those who believe in illah or in causation in this regard, this is an act of kufr. Na'udhu billah min tali. And then the author mentioned by this definition that this philosophy of illah is only speaking about bringing something into existence. They do not speak about making something comes from existence to non-existence. They are only speaking about existence, because it is bounded by the existence of something else. So when the philosophers, when they speak about this universe, it was brought into existence by causation, by illah, they say that this universe comes into existence with the existence of God. So this universe is in need of the existence of God to be existence. So this particular philosophy is only speaking about to bring something into existence. They do not speak about what you call it, to live something, or to bring something, what you call it, to not any to perform a particular action, or not any to bring something into existence by itself, because it is always binded with something, always binded with something else. So here he mentioned as opposed to leaving off an action, because this philosophy does not speak about leaving off an action. They only speak about bringing about something into existence. They do not speak about leaving something out of existence. And then he mentioned without any prerequisite condition or removal of impediments. Yani, this is a difference between the philosophy of illah and the philosophy of taba'. The philosophy of illah, they believe that if the illah is present, the ma'lul will be present. If the illah is present, the ma'lul will be present. They say, for example, God is in existence, the universe is in existence. So God is in existence, the universe is in existence without any condition. Without any condition. This kind of existence, there is talazum between it. Yani, since we are saying any existence of God, automatically the universe is in existence. So they do not speak about any conditions for the existence of the universe in itself, and they do not speak about impediments. Impediments meaning something that becomes a barrier, or something that becomes like a mani', that prevention, preventing any from being into existence. So they are saying that if something is in existence, the other thing comes into existence within. So this is basically the meaning of this particular definition. Now, I hope it is clear, inshallah. I only hope we can have a Q&A, but now currently, inshallah, if there is any question, I will take question at the end. Inshallah. So I will just continue. The author gave an example. They said that an example of this, they here goes back into the philosophers. They said that an example of this in the visible world, and in the visible world meaning the world that we are living, is the movement of a finger being the cause for the movement of a ring. So these philosophers, when they speak about causation or illah, they give the example of the finger and the ring. The moment you move your finger, the ring moves together. For example, if I hold this cup, for example, I hold this cup. Wherever I move my hand, the cup will follow. So they believe that this connection between the movement of the cup and the movement of the hand comes in place together. When I move my hand, automatically the cup is moved. This is their philosophy. So they say that the existence of the universe, it comes with the existence of God. Just like moving the ring that is on the finger. Once you move the finger, automatically the ring moves together with the finger. They say that the movement of the ring entails the movement of the finger entails the movement of the ring, and that without the movement of the finger, the ring will not move. This is their logic or their philosophy to state what they state. This is their belief. As for Ahlul Sunnah, now the author will speak about how Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah rebutted the philosophers in this regard. So when they come out with this any kind of evidence, the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they rebutted the philosophers. What do they say? They say, as for Ahlul Sunnah, the truth of the matter is that the movement of the ring and the finger are both creations of Allah. Yani, when we look at this example that they gave, that when you move your finger, automatically the ring moves. Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah says that both the movement of the finger and the movement of the ring is a creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is not impossible for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not any to move any the ring when He created movement any in the finger. This is not within the impossibilities any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani the movement any of the finger and the movement any of the ring is a creation any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can change it if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants. So we say that how come any the ring moves together any with the finger? This is in Aqeedah, yani we call it hukmul adi. Hukmul adi. It is based on customary means and it can change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He created the movement of the finger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the movement any of the ring. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He can create the movement of the finger without the movement any of the movement any of the ring, because both this movement, they are the creations any of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is any the rebuttal of the Ahlul Sunnah towards the philosophers. Then he mentioned this, as for the Ahlul Sunnah, the truth of the matter is that the movement of the ring and the finger are both creations of Allah. They are both inseparable due to the creation of Allah. They are both inseparable due to the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Yani Allah created that way. That when you put the ring any on the finger, when you move any the finger, the rings any moves any together with the finger. This is the order that Allah created. That the movement of the ring and the finger are both creations of Allah. They are inseparable due to the creation of Allah. They exalted. The movement of the ring is not a creator. So when you look at the concept, the finger, the movement of the finger and the movement of the ring, does the finger possess power to effect the movement of the ring? This is the question. The answer is no. The finger does not have the power to cause the movement of the ring. That power does not come from the finger. It comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what we mentioned pertaining to kasab. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created in you action, including the movement of the finger. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created the movement of the finger, and by the movement of the finger, and this is hukmul adi, the ring moves together with it. But that's what I mentioned. When it comes to hukmul ada, it can change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create the movement of the finger without any movement of the ring, because both are the creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The movement of the finger is not the creator. Yani, it is not by the movement of the finger that gives any effect to the movement of the ring, of the ring's movement, or vice versa. Likewise, we say the movement of the ring does not gives effect to the movement of the finger, vice versa. On the contrary, they are both outwardly inseparable. They are both outwardly inseparable. Naam. Yani, as far as hukmul ada is concerned, once you move your finger, the ring moves together with you. But as what we mentioned, this can change. This is what he mentioned after this. Some might go so far as to say that one of them is the main sabab for the other. And by that they intend the customary means, not an independent effect. Yani so many of the ulama they mention, for example, and if you say, for example, it is because of the movement of the finger comes the movement of the ring. So this particular statement, if it comes from a Muslim or it comes from the ulama, what they meant is this is customary means. That's what I mentioned, hukmul ada, that it is by the customary means that you move, when you move your finger, the ring and it moves together with the finger. So there is no harm in saying that the movement of the finger is the reason for the movement of the ring. But what is important, and we must understand, that it is not the movement of the finger that gives an independent effect into the movement of the ring, but this is based on customary means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created both the movement of the finger, and Allah created both the finger and the movement of the ring that comes with it. And that's what I mentioned, that Allah is able to create movement of the finger without any movement of the ring. So this is what the author said, not an independent effect. So to say it is a customary effect, it is correct. And if I say, for example, it is by the reason of the movement of the finger comes the movement of the ring. So this is how the Ahlul Sunnah rebutted the philosophers. So now when we look further down, the author said Ahlul Sunnah refuted the people of course. The people of course are the people who believe in Allah, by saying to them, if you claim that the pre-eternal divine entity entails the eternality of the world, because as you say, the cause must be accompanied by an effect without lack. And if you claim that a contingent needs a doer, and that the doer is nothing but a cause, that entails infinite regression and a vicious circle, both of which are impossible. Okay, so now the scholars of the Ahlul Sunnah, when they look at this philosophy or this belief of the philosophers or people of the cause, people who believe in Allah, so there can be two things that they claim. Number one, if they say that God is pre-eternal, this is situation number one. Number two, if they say that God himself is contingent, because they are philosophers who believe that God is pre-eternal. They are philosophers who believe that God has a beginning. Both are what you call it. These two philosophies exist. So now, if the people of Allah, the philosophers who believe in Allah, if they are from the first category says that God is pre-eternal. So if God is pre-eternal, if they say that everything happens by Allah, meaning the existence of the universe in itself must be pre-eternal, because the concept of causation, it follows the cause, the effect follow the cause. If the cause is pre-eternal, then the effect will also be pre-eternal. This is the first thing that the author mentioned. So he said, if you claim that the pre-eternal divine entity, here he refers to who? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the creator. If you claim, and now they are speaking to the philosophers. If you claim that the pre-eternal divine entity entails the eternality of the world, the universe, because they believe about this relation, al-illa wal-ma'lul, the cause and the effect. If the cause, that is the existence of the divine entity, that is God, is pre-eternal, then you must accept that the universe is pre-eternal. Because as you say, the cause must be accompanied with an effect without lack. The cause and the effect must come together. This is basically the philosophy of Allah. When the cause is present, automatically the effect must be present. Without the cause being the one who gives any effect. The one who gives the effect. This is, we call it in Arabic, talazum. If the illah is present, illah the cause, the ma'lul must also be, the ma'lul must be present. So when they claim that God is pre-eternal, then going into their definition, the universe must also be pre-eternal. So this is the first part. The second part, and if you claim that a contingent needs a doer, and that doer is nothing but a cause, a contingent needs a doer, and that the doer is nothing but a cause. The second situation is if they believe that the divine entity is contingent, it has a beginning. So now the universe also must be contingent. And if you claim that God himself is contingent, then it means that something else brought it into existence. And that's what we mentioned many times last time. When a person believes that God has a beginning, it means that God was brought into existence. So now we have to ask, who is the one who bring him into existence? So for example, if a person say there is God number 2 who brings him into existence, and this God also has a beginning, then again we have to ask the question, who brought any God and number 2 into existence? Then we say, for example, God and number 3, person say. And then this God number 3 also has a beginning. Who is the one who brought him into existence? God number 4. So it cannot be ending. This is called tasalsul. In English, we call it infinite regression. And infinite regression is impossible. This is what the author is saying. He said, if you claim that a contingent needs a doer, and that the doer is nothing but a cause, the doer is the cause, that entails infinite regress. And just like example, I mentioned that now, if a person says that this universe is contingent, at the same time he believes in Allah. So when he said this universe is contingent, if he believes in Allah, that means the God must also be contingent. Because this philosophy of Allah believes that the universe exists with the existence of God. So if the universe is contingent, then God must be contingent. If God is contingent, it leads to infinite. It leads to infinite regression. This is what he mentioned. That entails infinite regress and a vicious cycle. It can also mean they can also come into a daur, meaning circularity. What is the meaning of circularity? Now, last time, for example, the philosophers, they say that the universe is qadim. The universe is pre-eternal. Meaning nobody created the universe. And they believe that when they were questioned, who is the one who brought the universe into existence, they say that the universe was brought into existence by the concept of vicious circle or circularity. This concept of circularity, meaning, let me give you a simple example. We go out from this explanation for a while. I'll just give a simple example. A person says that God has a beginning. That God has a beginning. Then we ask, who is the one who created this God? Then the person says, God number 2. God number 2 has a beginning. Who is the one who created God number 2? God number 3. Who is the one who created God number 3? He comes back to the first one. God number 1. So this is called ad-dawr. Yani, the belief that the one of the things that is mentioned within the circle is a creator and something that is created at the same time. This is the meaning of circularity. The meaning of circularity. So some philosophers they fell into infinite regression when they keep on saying, for example, every God has a beginning, and everything that has a beginning there must be something else it bring into existence, and it keeps on going. This is infinite regression. But if one of the things that they mentioned becomes the creator after being created, now this is the concept of circularity, and the author says that both of which are impossible. Both of which are impossible. So I hope it is clear, inshallah. So basically, when a person says that God has a beginning, either it leads into infinite regression or it leads into circularity. What is the difference? Infinite regression, there is no end. Whereas circularity, it goes back into the first, or it goes back into the one of what is mentioned before. And both are impossible. Rationally, it cannot be accepted. When you speak about infinite regression, then it cannot end. So this is impossible. When you speak about circularity, it is impossible because why? The one who is being created cannot become the one who created that which created him at the same time. So this is impossible. And then he mentioned it is impossible for Allah the Exalted to bring something of the world into existence through nature, taba. According to them, the reality of innate nature is that from which an action springs, as opposed to living of an action. So this is the similarity between the concept of nature and the concept of causation. Both are saying that the existence comes together, the effect comes together with the cause. When the cause is in existence, automatically the effect comes along with it. So this is the concept of causation, as what we mentioned before this. And likewise, the concept of at-taba, concept of nature. The only difference between the concept of causation and the concept of nature is that the concept of nature, it speaks about prerequisite condition and impediments. Yani there must be condition, and there must be free from impediments, yani preventive factor. So let me give you an example before I stop. Last week I spoke about fire. Let me speak about this example again. So hopefully by this example, inshallah, it becomes more clear. You see, the philosophers who believe in causation and who believe in nature, when they claim that the universe, it comes into existence together with the existence of God, that by the cause the effect comes along with it, and that God has no power over the universe, and He does not will the existence of the universe, but it's just that the universe exists alongside with Him, just like any cause and effect. And they give this example of the finger and the ring, as what we mentioned. Taib, when they believe in that, and likewise the people of nature also believe in the same thing. So they basically are saying that the nature has independent efficacy, that the universe, it has an independent efficacy, that it has power within itself to function. So for example, if they will ask, for example, how does fire burns, they will say that fire has the ability to burn. The people of Allah will say that if you put paper to fire, it will burn. Yani the cause is the fire, and the effect is the burning. So this comes along, and the power of burning comes from the fire itself, not from any intervention of God. The people of nature believes in the same thing, but the difference is that the people of nature place condition. For example, they say that fire can burn paper if the condition is that the paper is not wet, for example, or there is no preventive factor that prevents the paper from being burned. That if you place some oil, or you place some liquid, for example, on that paper, and you put that paper on fire, it will not burn. So because why? There is a preventive factor that prevents the paper from getting burned. So this is the difference between the people of Allah and the people of Taba. The people of Allah, they do not speak about precondition and preventive factors. They say as long as there is fire and paper, when the fire touches the paper, now there is cause and effect. The paper will burn. Whereas the people of nature say it's not necessarily that when there is a touching of fire and paper that it will cause burning. We have to look at the conditions, and we have also to look for the preventive factors. If the conditions are there and there is no preventive factor, then only that paper will burn. But both believe then the power of burning comes from the creations themselves. Comes from the fire. Likewise, when they speak about water, they say water has the power to give an independent effect. That if you drink any water, you will be quenched, and water is the one that will quench your thirst. So the people of Allah speaks that when you drink any water, your thirst will be quenched. So when there is cause, there must be effect. Whereas the people of Taba say, yes, we agree with the people of Allah. When there is cause, there must be effect, but we must also look at the conditions, and we must also look at the preventive factors in order for us to come to a conclusion that this cause and effect comes into existence. Now, so basically this is the difference. This is what the author say. He say, it is impossible for Allah the Exalted to bring something of the world into existence through nature. Now, nature here meaning As what I mentioned earlier. So we cannot understand this through looking at English dictionary about nature. This is not what they are talking about. It is a philosophy, as what I mentioned last week. Causation, and he has his own any philosophy. Nature, and he has his own any philosophy. According to them, the reality of in nature is that from which an action springs. Now, meaning an action and it springs any from what you call it, like any when we speak about illah, when there is any the cause, any there must be any the effect, as opposed to leaving off an action. Likewise, the people of nature, they do not speak about leaving an action. They only speak any about doing, about putting something, bringing something into existence. We have the prerequisites of fulfilling a condition. This is different. For those who have the kitab, and you might want to underline. You might want to underline this. This is difference. We have the prerequisite of fulfilling a condition or removing an impediment. Impediment meaning mani', yani a preventive factor. They say that example of this is the visible world. Indeed, in the visible world is combustion and fire. Combustion, they said, is the innate nature of fire. However, it is preconditioned with obtaining something, which in this case will be contact. So there must be contact. This is the condition that they put in. And the removal of a preventive barrier, which in this case will be wetness. That's what I mentioned earlier. That they put a condition that number one, there must be contact. Fire, so they say that in order for the paper to be burned, there must be contact. And number two, they say there must be preventive and effector. Yani the paper must not be wet. But the people of Allah, they do not speak any about the precondition, they do not speak any about the impediments. And the removal of a preventive and effector, which in this case will be wetness. In their argument, they say that if a precondition that continues to remain is obtained, the world is brought into without will. So they are not forced by implication to say that the world is eternal. Naam. So this is the belief of taba, both of the belief of illah and taba, they believe that the world comes into existence in opposed to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So inshallah now we will stop our class. I do not know if there is any question. So if there is no question, inshallah we will stop here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq and hidayah. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with the understanding. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.